Hello and welcome to part 3 of how to draw a lioness. My name is David and I'm hoping that this drawing is more for beginners. I'm trying to use as little colours as possible. I think there's only about 7 colours, so hopefully we'll get along. So let's crack on. I'm starting with today with the nose. I started on last week. Starting off with a burnt sienna. Just gently filling it in, using the side of the pencil to give a nice even coating. You don't want to go in too dark or too deeply or heavily straight away. You just want to layer it in gently, bringing those layers up until you get the right consistency. There you go, nice and gently. Bring it into the corners. And now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to zoom in so we can see a bit closer as to what I'm doing. So I'm now picking up the walnut brown, coming in and putting in the nostril. With this walnut brown, it's coming in a bit darker so we can see where the nostril is. And now we got it in the right place, we can come in a little bit heavier. And start putting in some of that shadow lines. Coming on to the other side, doing the same that I did the other side, on the first side. There we go, now we've got the 2 nostrils defined. We come in with the black, just going over it so it is a nostril. It is very dark up there. Coming in now with the walnut brown and just putting in another layer over what we've done earlier on. And also blending it in with the black. This is a very smooth nose, usually with something like a dog's nose. You do little circles going around, but this one's just a smooth nose. So I just went straight in, coming back in with the black, defining the edge, a shadow around the edge. And bringing out that nostril a little bit more, giving it a little more depth. And bring it down to the bottom of the nose. And defining that line that's in between the nose that we see all the way through the head. In now with the dark sepia, bringing that up another level, another layer, darkening it up, but not as dark as the black. And bringing in this dark sepia just to highlight some of those shadows and making it look as if it's rounded the nose rather than just placed upon his face. There you go. So you've got a dark nose, so you can see the dark nostrils of it, but it's not bold in your face. Okay, let's now go back to the ivory and start on this side of the face. Start joining that nose with the cheek side. Bringing that ivory up to its nose and down its chin, her chin. Giving it another layer. Rubber that pencil lines out. Then coming back in with the burnt ochre. And giving it a light layering. Joining up the top of the face. And gently coming down. Still using the burnt ochre, just joining those pieces up at the top, flicking those furs into place and bringing the markings down as well. Bringing some of the markings from down the side of her face. In now with the raw umber, bringing in a bit more colour. Little flicks. Coming out from where we were earlier on. So I'm bringing that marking all the way down. Back in with the dark sepia, darkening up these markings of hers. Bringing that marking down a little bit further. It's a bit better. Yeah, yes, slight adjustments here and there. As you get further and further into the picture, you'll see adjustments that you need to do. Back in with the raw umber, going round the nose. Bringing that marking down and round the nose. Joining up with the marking around the eyelid. Just finishing off around the top of her nose. Just when you think you're finished, you find something else. Just give that a little bit more of a shade. Bit of burnt sienna on the markings up to the eye. Bringing some fur lines out and joining in with what I've already done. Just to make it pop that little bit more. Going from walnut brown to burnt sienna. Going backwards and forwards. Dark sepia. Coming in that little bit darker. Bit of a raw umber just coming along, more colour we need. And coming back to the nose, what we were doing earlier on with the ivory, building that up a little bit more. Around the nose it is very light, so I'm going to try not to lose too much of that ivory. Coming in with the burnt ochre, coming in with the side of the pencil, just giving it a thin layer. So I'm now going to zoom back out so we can see the whole of the lioness. The ivory just bringing out her shoulder so I know where her shoulder is. So we're coming down to that piece in a minute. So we're just defining where the edge of her chin and cheeks are ending. Trying to give this a few layers. A bit of tidying up. A little bit of burnt ochre. And again with the ivory. Burnt ochre, and I started to put in some of her markings just to define where they are. raw umber now, and just bringing it up a little bit in colour. Once you're happy with the first layer, you can always go on to the next layer, darken it up where it needs to be. Just using the side of the pencil just to establish where it all is. Gently going over it. And just gently bringing it out like it is fur. Back in with the burnt ochre. Coming in with the point of the pencil and starting to put in some fur. Trying to make sure you go in the right direction, coming downwards, and doing V shapes as you're coming down. Upside down V's. Coming down. It's not always really easy to remember. Here I'm going up now because what I want to do is get that fur going into the whiter fur. So it's creating a shadow under a lighter fur. Same again all the way along. Now I'm going down. Burnt umber, raw umber, sorry. And back with the burnt sienna, just giving it a little bit more highlights. Some of those shadows underneath the fur. Flicking it up so it's going underneath the whiter fur. Same again along the edge. Just giving it a nice little layering with the side of the pencil, giving it a softer touch to it. Blending that all in. So now I've got an embossing tool, which is I'm going to try and get some whiskers in. I don't know if I've got enough on there at the moment, but the whiskers aren't that deeply defined on the picture anyway. So I'm coming back over with the Ivory. Back over with the burnt ochre. They're coming through a little bit, but not great. A few more fur lines to show where her chin is coming. She's got quite a bit of a beard, this young lady. Flicking it up so it's going underneath the white or the ivory. And then with the raw umber, So flicking it up and flicking it down as well, so it's going over the bottom ivory and underneath the top ivory. Joining that head and shoulders together properly. Back over to just above her mouth now. I'm just going to try and do this bit around her nose. Bit of raw umber. Burnt ochre. No, raw umber. Just trying to do those little spots where the cat's whiskers come from. Cats and dogs. I don't know what it's called. So went in with a raw umber. Coming in with the dark sepia to define those spots a little bit more. Not to make them bold, but just to give them a bit more colouring. But not going right the way over that raw umber I used a moment ago. Back in with the raw umber. And some of those dots are actually joined, so gently doing that. Sharpened up that burnt sienna so we can get into the right into the nooks and crannies. Just so you can get in a little bit closer and also join those dots up a little bit without losing those dots. Raw umber, and then just gently going over them, blending it all in together, and it just brings that burnt sienna down that little bit. As you're putting in those spots, just remembering that it is on a round face, it's not a flat face. So you want to try and get that going round. Coming onto its mouth, I'm just going to go round it with a burnt sienna. Just to define where we are. Back in with the burnt ochre. Getting in some fur lines around the corner of her mouth. Burnt sienna. A shadow in her mouth, just so we can see where it is. Come back to the other side, doing her shoulder with the burnt ochre. raw umber. Flicking it up again and flicking it down into V shapes, if you can remember that. V shapes going up and V shapes coming down in reverse then. To give it a little bit more realistic look. They're not all just straight. Burnt ochre. No, sorry. Burnt sienna. Just darken it up in some areas. Particularly where the shadow is, where it's going underneath the lighter fur. Bit more burnt ochre, coming all the way up. Raw umber. Back to her mouth and nose area. I'm just coming over with the burnt ochre, just darkening it up a little bit more with the side of the pencil, blending in that raw umber and burnt sienna that I did earlier on. The burnt sienna coming around the markings on her nose. And then joining that up with the markings we've done just a moment ago, the spots. A little bit of shading over the ivory. Although it's a lot lighter colour, it's not totally white or ivory. Dark sepia around its mouth. Defining those shadows. And just flicking it up, just to show the fur, that there is a white fur coming into the mouth. Burnt ochre, just a side of the pencil, and just giving it a very, very light shading. Okay, so coming now onto her beard. Coming in with the ivory. Giving it a good old layering here. All the way over and all the way down to the bottom. And then burnt ochre coming in just to show where the beard ends. We got her belly is here. Flicking it down in a V-shaped motion if you can. And the same again, flicking it up so it's going underneath her white beard, or whiter. Now this is the where her chin is. Coming in now with the raw umber, a bit more colour, a bit more depth. Under her chin. Used a bit of burnt sienna there to give a bit more shadows. Back in with the burnt ochre. Sharp pencil so that you can get those furs in neatly. You don't want a totally blunt pencil. Bit more burnt sienna. Now what? Yep, coming back in with the did the mouth a bit too much earlier on. Coming back in with the burnt ochre. And coming round her mouth. Trying to see where to go next. So we'll come up with the burnt ochre, finishing off or touching up a little bit more around her beard. Bringing a bit more depth around her chin. And underneath her beard. Raw umber, doing the same thing again. Bringing in some shadows under the beard and coming through the bit under the chin, sorry, and through the beard, and just underneath her mouth, filling up this chin with some ivory. Coming with the burnt sienna, put it in the other side of her mouth. Just slightly flicking it up as I was going through to give some fur lines. Back in with the burnt ochre, gently with the point, coming around the edge of the mouth. And then putting in some few fur lines. And also around her chin. raw umber this time. Bit of colour, sorry, bit of colour. Burnt ochre on the inside of the chin, bringing it round. Bringing out some of the colour on her chin. So the pencil just gently over. Burnt sienna. A bit more shadow. Just making it a bit more colourful. The dark sienna and the raw umber. Just defining that a little bit more. What I think I'll do now is I'm gonna finish this here, as we've done quite a bit today. And in part 4, we'll finish the rest of her face and the other side of her body, and any other little details that might be needed. There you go. So I'm quite happy with where we are today. So if you enjoyed that, thank you very much for watching. And as I said, in part 4, we will finish the rest of her face and the rest of her body. So thank you again. And if you enjoyed this, please like, subscribe and share. And we'll see you next time.